The Milwaukee Bucks, worst team in the league. Absolutely crazy. Camille and I get into it coming up next.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. And on today's show, do we cover the worst team in the league this season? That's what one media outlet thinks. We have shared our thoughts on this quite a bit throughout the summer, but we'll go through more of Bleacher Report's win totals for teams this upcoming season. What is the best and worst case scenario for this Bucks team, and why their figure for the Bucks is completely absurd? So start there, Camille. I mean, it would be one thing if you were to tell me, I truly believe the Bucks will be the worst team in the league by way of record this season. Mm-hmm. I would say I disagree with you, but okay, I'm willing to listen because I don't think it's out of the realm of in fact, I think it's realistic that the Bucks will finish with one of the 4 or 5 worst records. But I don't think it'll be the worst. Where you completely lose me is when the win total checks in below 20.
Yeah.
Which is what Bleacher Report had. And look, we've talked about the Eastern Conference improving this past summer. We've talked about a lottery relegation and what that means if teams aren't going to be basically handing you wins throughout the course of the season as they were in years past. But 18 wins, you got to be historically bad to win 18 games. And when I look at the Bucks roster, I don't see a historically bad team.
Me either. I don't quite understand 18 wins. Like, I think the Vegas line, which was 26 and a half. Yes. That line to me, I would still be inclined to take the over on that by a smidge, but that feels more of like a solid starting place of how many wins do you think the Milwaukee Bucks at a baseline could get this upcoming season? 18 wins feels crazy to me. Like, this is a Bucks team that last year, even in the games without Giannis, they went 15-31 in games without Giannis last year. If you were to look at that over the full season, that's like 26, 27 wins right there for last year's team that had a worse coaching staff, a worse culture, no identity, could probably still go out there and got 26 wins last year if you prorate that over a full season without Giannis on that roster. I think that when you look at this year's roster, yes, there are question marks. Yes, you don't have a go-to superstar. Understand all of that. But it's not as if this is a team that is made up of a bunch of bad players. Like, on the offensive side, you have guys who can go out there and get you a bucket. On the defensive side, you have some guys who can play some pretty good defense and make things interesting. So from that and the coaching upgrade that this team is getting, 18 wins. When I saw that, I just laughed because I just couldn't believe it that they had the Nets at 22-60. And then they had the Kings at like 20-62. But the Bucks are going to be the team with the worst record in the entire NBA. I have a hard time seeing that one coming to fruition.
Since the Bucks won 15 games in that 13-14 season, 15 teams have won 18 or fewer games. So what is that, 13 seasons that we're talking about? Mm-hmm. That we've had 15. So you've had one basically per season winning 18 or fewer games. And when you look at how they got there, so this past season, we had one, the Washington Wizards, who were trying to increase their lottery chances. The Indiana Pacers won 19 games. That was a team playing without Tyrese Halliburton. They shut down Ivica Zubac. They had a whole bunch of injuries early in the season as well, where the case was made for them, let's just play for next year. 2 years ago, same culprits, the Utah Jazz and the Washington Wizards, both won 18 or fewer games, both teams that were gaming the system playing for the lottery. 2 years prior, or a year prior to that, Stop me if you've heard this name before. The Washington Wizards, the Pistons. That was the historic 28 losses in a row season. They also won fewer than 18 games. So the point that I'm getting at here, the Pistons did it the year prior to that as well. The point I'm getting at is just how bad these teams are that do that when you look at the makeup of the roster and or what their intentions are. The Bucs don't have those intentions, even with not only in their draft pick and saying, well, we don't care if we're relegated because it's not our pick that's getting relegated. You still have to, in your first year post Giannis, and this has been the messaging from the team too, you have to be competitive. And I can't stress it enough. Competing on the court doesn't necessarily translate to wins, but like that's the level of competitive. The players that they brought in. These are guys in Miami that were part of a play-in, albeit, but playoff caliber team for the last 3 years in the case of these guys, 2 years in the case of Kel'el Ware. They're guys that at least set that floor for you of, like not a top 6 team, but if everything breaks right, we have adults in the room. Guys that have played in this league and guys that have played in postseason games in this league that can help us get there. Like it's not like looking at those Wizards teams that we talked about, that Pistons team from 3 years ago, the Nets from the last couple of years where you have 5 rookies, first round picks on the team and that type of group. Like the Bucs are constructed incredibly different from all those teams in the past, which is the biggest thing that I keep pushing back on when we see all these lists and rankings of the Bucs being the worst or second worst team in the league is I get they lost Giannis. They also lost Giannis for about 50 games last season. So it's not entirely uncharted water. There's a lot that we haven't gotten into yet, but yes. But like one of these is not like the other when we're comparing them to other historically bad teams. This is not that group. And I think of anyone, this would be the group that you would look at and say, you know what, I can't believe the Bucs are doing this. And doing this doesn't mean 50 wins or 45. Right. But even if the Bucs are like at 30 already, the low 30 win total when we get to mid-March even, like wow, look at what this Bucs team did. I'm very surprised. Like I think that's more realistic than the Bucs winning less than 20 games this season.
I do too. And I would love to talk more about what we feel are actually like realistic win totals, because there is one thing in the Bleacher Report record predictions that I do think is accurate for this upcoming season. And that is
number of 82 games.
No, it's that they don't have any teams winning 60 plus games in this upcoming season, I think the highest win total was the
55,
Spurs,
I think.
was 55, where to me, that feels very realistic for this upcoming season, where I think that the games are going to be more competitive just in general, and that you are going to just have a bit more parity in the league in that way where the records are close, which is why I think when you do get to, March and April, like I think the battles that are going to be happening for playoff positioning and for the play-in race are going to be really, really competitive with a bunch of teams that are kind of grouped together, because I don't think there's going to be as much separation as we have seen in years past from the best of the best to the middle class to the worst. Like I think you are going to have conference favorites for sure, and that they'll be on the top, but I don't see any 60 win teams in the league this upcoming season.
All right, the best and worst case scenarios for the Bucs. We'll get into that conversation coming up next.
Locked On Bucs is brought to you by FanDuel, because baseball fans, if you think you know who's going to hit a home run today, then FanDuel is going to give you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's very easy to play. You just make your free pick on who you think is going to hit a home run in their game. And if you happen to be right, you're going to receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. And everybody loves extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every single day throughout the entirety of the MLB season. Daily Dingers is just a really fun way, another fun way to stay engaged with everyday games. So whether you're following your favorite team or keep an eye on matchups across the league, you already know it. every game has someone capable of going deep. So now is your chance to make your prediction before the first pitch. There are certain players where it feels like every single at bat, something big could happen. And that's what makes Daily Dingers fun. You get to back the player you think is ready to go deep on that day. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at fanduel.com. That's fanduel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. And as a reminder, please gamble responsibly.
All right, best and worst case scenario for this team. So, do you want to do win totals?
Yeah, it's like a range. Let's do that.
I think best would be, I mean, with the challenge here is we don't know how the roster rounds out. And I don't mean like how do you get to 15, but like, does something come to fruition with Peyton Watson, and how does this roster start to look dramatically different? I'll say the best case scenario for this team would be 40 wins. So 40 and 42. Actually, I'll come back a little. 38 wins, I'll say, given how tough the Eastern Conference is going to be. I think the best case scenario would be 38 and 44. I think that still keeps you outside of the postseason. I don't think that's going to be enough to get you into the playoffs, or at best it gets you the 10 seed in the play-in. But 38 wins would be my high. And the worst, it's a really difficult start on the schedule. You could, if you dig yourself too big a hole, and we anticipate, and we talked about Josh Glessing saying roster's probably going to look different at the end of the season than the beginning. If that start to the season is too challenging, you dig yourself a big hole, you make other moves. I'll say 24 is the worst
24
case
on the
scenario.
low end. I mean, that low end though is still actually, I mean, according to Bleacher Report, impossible. But
great, that's a great season, yeah.
Right. I think I'm pretty close in alignment with where you are. I think for the Bucks, like the best case scenario for them, I think, is flirting with 500, where you're in that ballpark of can you maintain being around a 500 team throughout the season, in the season, somewhere around, 41 wins at the high point. But I think your 38 wins is probably like the most realistic high point for me with them. But I could see that world where it's a 500 team. You're looking at just a 41 record straight up. Like Bleacher Report had that record prediction for the Hornets this upcoming season, which had me go like, that's interesting to me. I think they take a little bit of a step back, but I think the Bucks could be in that realm of wins right there. And I think on the low end, I'm probably around like, because if things go wrong or injuries pop up, or there are guys who are going to be forced into positions that they're not necessarily ready to be playing right now, I think on the low end, I probably would go around like 21 wins, 22, like 22 and 60 on the very, very low end, where it's like things just didn't pan out necessarily the way you thought that they would, and they took a step back from where they were last year. Because going into this, I kept saying, like, if the Milwaukee Bucks end up, winning 32 games around like where they did this past year, like that feels like I can see that being very realistic. So I think for me, like that middle part of like winning 31, 32 games feels like the realistic middle point for me. But on the high end, 41 and 41, on the low end, like winning 21, maybe 22 games.
I mean, so the teams that won 22 or fewer last year were the Jazz, who were openly mocking the system, the Kings, who were not, the Brooklyn Nets, who are a hybrid approach, the Pacers and Wizards, and we already addressed those two teams. And like, I understand the Eastern Conference is better this season, or more talent has come over, we should say. Because we thought the Bucks were better in 2023, and we thought other teams were better after moves that they made, that it just doesn't work out for a variety of reasons. So on paper, the conference is much better. The changes to the lottery is going to impact this, where it's going to be harder to just back into wins throughout the season. But What has not changed and where the Bucs have actually gotten better is health and depth.
Yep. And coaching.
Right. But like just in terms of, well, I suppose that relates to it as well, but in terms of how the game is played and what's important, I mean, coaching and identity and all that is extremely important. And the Bucs hope to reap the benefits this year. But the speed that the game is played at, the ground that you have to cover, how much offensive possessions and defensive possessions, what you're required to do has changed dramatically, even in the last, 3-4 years.
Yeah.
It's imperative to be deep, full of guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot and can play on both ends of the floor, that are athletic enough where you're not the old team. And I look around at some of these teams that are better and will have a better record than the Bucs. They're old. Yep. They don't have quite as much depth. Like, just as we said, it's going to be harder for teams like the Bucs because of how the conference in the East is. And frankly, a lot of times that gets overblown of like, oh, well, tougher conference. Like you're not exclusively playing the Eastern Conference. Right. I understand this majority of your schedule, but it's not exclusive. But just as we said, it's going to be more challenging for teams like the Bucs and others to stay afloat when there's more teams that are trying to win. I mean, that applies to the good teams as well, where you better hope we don't have another season like last year for Giannis. You better hope Nikola Jokic doesn't miss time. You better hope these guys don't go down to injuries, or you do have Giannis, but hey, guess what? Bam went down, or this player went down, and all of a sudden that depth takes a hit. Like, it's going to be tough for you to win games too. Yep. So I think it's tougher for all these teams. You got to have stars, but you have to have depth, and you can't be the old team.
You can't. And that's one thing that is working in the Bucs' favor with the amount of just younger players that they can depend on this upcoming season. And you mentioned like the tough start to the calendar that the Bucs are going to have with the schedule, which is very, very real for them and how they have to start off this season. But I think for this team, it might be a case too where a lot of the stacking of the wins does come later, because when you do look at their schedule, they have a few different, road heavy portions throughout the middle of the season after a tough start to the season. But they do end the season playing 11 of their last 16 games at home in Fiserv Forum. So that for them could be a really big help to finish strong to the finish line pretty much for this team, where a lot of those wins for the Bucs might start coming towards the end of the year in March and in April for them, where it's like, okay, we have learned from the beginning of the year. We are continuing to build on that. We're past the trade deadline. We know we're working with. We have our future in sight, how we want to play, what we're trying to work towards. And now we have a very home heavy schedule to finish out the year. And I could see them getting a bunch of wins during that stretch to end the season as well.
Yeah, I mean, the real tell for this team is going to be those first, 12 games or so, 15 games that they had on the schedule, where it's loaded with elite teams. And I think, frankly, 500 is asking a lot. So you open with the Wizards on the road. Then you have the Bulls. Those feel like 2 games you better get. But like, those are teams that are, I think, in the same conversation. Maybe Bleacher Report doesn't, but I think in the same conversation as the Bucs. Then it's Philly, Indiana, Houston, Cleveland, Minnesota, Boston, Toronto, Boston, the Knicks, the Lakers, the Magic, the Hawks, the Heat, Blazers, Sixers, Raptors, before you get to the Brooklyn Nets. And then after the Nets, you close out the month of November with the Pistons, Thunder, and Spurs. So it's a brutal start to the season. And for that matter, the one game in December you play before we get to the rest of the cup schedule is the Knicks. So it's an incredibly challenging start to the season that we're mentioning. And that is, the Heat game will be the 15th game that the Bucs play on the season. So I think it's very realistic to say the Bucs will leave that with a record of like 5-10, 4-11. If you can go, it sounds crazy, but even if you can go 6-9, like I think we weathered this storm pretty well. And anything above that is where you say, okay, they're building something.
Yeah, that's found money if it's anything better than that. And it's like a baptism by fire to start the season for this team, which welcome to the NBA for some of the new guys on the squad. Welcome to Milwaukee for the Heat players, so on and so forth. Like I've said it so many times by now, but like I truly am so excited for this season to start because of just the competition throughout the league. And it's going to be good for the Bucks to have those measuring stick games early. And the teams that you're seeing in October and November, they're probably going to be playing different, feel different by the time you get past the trade deadline, past the All-Star break. So you're getting these teams in their first iteration. We'll see how it continues to change for them, but it's a fun way to start the season off, I think, for the team. Hard, yes, but as somebody who's going to be watching the games, like it should be fun.
The last thing I'll ask you as we close here, if we just swap the logos, we put the Heat logo on this roster and we put the Bucks logo on Miami's roster, do you think nationally this would be viewed as the worst roster in the league? If I told you this is the Miami Heat?
Probably not. I don't think that they would. I don't think that they would because they would give the SPO bump, I believe. And there's so much trust in like Heat culture. And hey, we might not be familiar with some of these guys on the roster, but we know the Miami Heat can find jewels and how they get these undrafted guys or guys you don't think are going to be heralded to play better. So I think they would get a Miami bump from what they have historically done. Meanwhile, in Milwaukee, it's a fresh start. No one really knows what to expect. I do feel like some of the Taylor Jenkins feels a little borderline disrespect of like,
I think there's a lot of, I think people are sleeping quite a bit on Taylor Jenkins. And I mean, that's the last thing. Would you think this is the worst team in the league if there was no coaching change?
Ooh, in that case, yes, I would not feel as comfortable with this roster going forward if there was not a coaching change this past offseason.
I asked the same question to the audience as well, so I'm curious to see the takeaways here of your best and worst case scenario for this Bucks team, and like, are we just too blinded here? Myself, especially being around the team for as long as I have, like, are we missing something here, or is the national media just way, way too low on this team for this upcoming season? So leave your thoughts in the comments. I am curious to see what rolls in here. That'll do it for today's show and for the week as well. A reminder to check out the Locked On NBA show as well. Make that your second listen of the day or your second viewing of the day, a 24/7 YouTube channel on the NBA on audio as well. Check out Locked On NBA for your second listen. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with everyone once again next week on Locked On Bucks.